My best friend confessed his love at my wedding. I never thought my most joyful moment could descend into chaos right before the vows were exchanged. Fate has a cruel habit of striking when you're least prepared, especially when you're dressed in a bridal gown, your pulse racing as if it's trying to escape. I'm Sophia, 32, and for more than 3 years I've shared my life with Daniel. He's everything I could want: reliable, compassionate, always ready with a witty remark to lift my spirits, and a rock when things get tough. We've overcome obstacles that seemed impossible, and I believed our path ahead was crystal clear. Yet, as the wedding approached, an odd tension crept in. I'm not prone to paranoia, but little clues began painting a disturbing scene. Consider Daniel's closest buddy, Ryan. They've been thick as thieves since high school, sharing adventures, pursuing early ambitions, and trading quips that left outsiders baffled. I never minded, until that last stretch before the big day. It began with Ryan being unusually solicitous. His stares stretched a tad too far, his grins seemed off-kilter, and his banter had a sharpness it lacked before. I dismissed it as wedding jitters. Why wouldn't the groom's best pal be anything but encouraging? The lead-up to the event swallowed my every hour. Days blurred with gown alterations, sessions with the caterer over appetizers, discussions with the videographer, selecting tunes for the reception, and non-stop calls from my dad, who, true to form, injected a dose of exaggeration into it all. I aimed for composure, but a faint disquiet chewed at me, elusive and unnamed. On the wedding dawn, I stirred before dawn broke fully. Rays of light pierced the blinds, and on the surface all appeared idyllic. Still, a peculiar dread nestled in my core. I attributed it to pressure, but instinctively I felt a storm brewing, one beyond my foresight. Perched at the dresser, twisting my locks into a sophisticated braid, my thoughts whirled. What if disaster strikes? What if he? Who even is he? I turned aside and caught sight of a snapshot from Daniel and Ryan's initial hiking expedition. Two beaming youths, now enigmas in a sense I couldn't dismiss. I inhaled deeply, shoving the worry down. As I made my way down to where my relatives and stylist assembled, Ryan entered. Our gazes locked, sending a chill along my back. His grin stretched too broadly, and a knot formed within me. Was it envy, gut feeling, or mere apprehension that this occasion might fray? "Sophia, you're set to be the most radiant bride out there," he remarked, drawing nearer, his tone strangely personal. I dipped my head, mustering a grin, but the discomfort intensified. "Appreciate it, Ryan," I muttered, averting my eyes. "You look sharp yourself." He acknowledged with a nod, and we feigned normalcy. But his expression rattled me. I shifted focus to preparations, yet his aura loomed large, as though he weren't merely attending but scrutinizing my every action. Hours blurred, and soon the hall brimmed with attendees. I huddled with my dad, reviewing final touches. He kept soothing me, his phrases resounding. "Relax, it'll all go smoothly. This is your spotlight, nothing will spoil it. Keep that smile going." But then I spotted Daniel at the front. His beam was expansive, bordering on strained. Beside him was Ryan. I saw Ryan murmur into his ear. Daniel inclined his head, and they shared a glance. Just guy stuff, I assured myself, but my chest tightened. The rite commenced without a hitch. Melodies filled the air, faces lit up, and my fingers quivered faintly. I proceeded along the path, gripping my flowers, beaming at the crowd. The worry persisted, but I brushed it aside, pinning it on anxiety. When the moment arrived for the best man's toast, I anticipated amusing tales, ribbing, and recollections of Daniel's past. Little did I know Ryan was poised to flip the script entirely. He rose, clutching a note, and launched in. Initially, it was routine, schoolyard escapades, comical incidents that drew chuckles from the group. I eased up, even chuckled, figuring this is perfect, the ideal wingman backing his mate. But his voice dropped, nearly whispered, and I caught phrases that halted my breath. "Sophia, there's a truth I must share." I figured it for humor, perhaps a warm nod, but the follow-up was far from it. It was an admission, one that defied belief. "I'm in love with you." Time halted. Color fled my cheeks as if the fabric of existence had been ripped asunder. The assembly hushed, murmurs and giggles evaporating. Daniel gaped at Ryan with an astonishment I'd never witnessed. This was no error or mix-up. It was a daring, open declaration, uttered before the entire gathering on what should have been my pinnacle of bliss. I yearned to yell, to bolt, to utter anything, but I was immobilized. My mind blanked, my heart thundering so fiercely it echoed in my ears. Ryan pressed on, his statements carving into me. He recounted his emotions, instances where he observed me, content, and yearned to stand in Daniel's place, not as a friend, but as my partner. I shut my lids, attempting to barricade the torrent of feelings. Exclamations, buzzes, and uneasy chuckles permeated the space, but I fixated solely on the agony and dismay within. I sensed this was merely the onset. I had no inkling how profoundly this occasion, this instant, would reshape my existence. When Ryan uttered those syllables, it was as if the earth dissolved underfoot. "I'm in love with you." Existence seemed to stall, noises dimming, the atmosphere growing dense and oppressive. I parted my eyes and beheld Daniel rigid. His complexion blanched, mouth quivering, palms balling into knots. I'd never beheld him thus, perpetually serene, poised, now fractured by bewilderment and jolt. The crowd was astounded. Some muttered to companions, others pasted on grins, wishing it a jest, but the majority bore expressions of perplexity. Ryan remained poised, his visage stripped bare with sincerity, as though he'd unloaded a weight without pondering the fallout. I longed to bellow, I longed to escape, I longed for a voice to declare, "This is an error." But all I managed was to linger there, blooms in grasp, my windpipe constricting until respiration grew labored. "Sophia," Ryan hesitated, his timbre unsteady yet determined. "I realize this is improper. I know this isn't my moment, but I can't hold back any longer. I'm in love with you. I always have been." His utterances struck like a tangible strike, lancing my torso. A buzz invaded my hearing, the cosmos narrowed to a solitary tone of apprehension. I gazed at Daniel. His orbs swelled with inquiries, anguish, and maybe fury. He was at a loss. Everyone was. "Ryan," I forced out his name, my tone wavering, uncertain of my intent. "What are you up to? How dare you? Why now?" My musings galloped unchecked. Ryan inched nearer, as if imploring me to grasp without speech. He wasn't jesting. He embodied every syllable, and that verity was dismantling all. The crowd's murmurs amplified. Some captured images. Others shielded their lips, concealing shock or intrigue. I endured there, command slipping, cognition faltering. "Daniel," I eventually voiced, my timbre scarcely stable. "What does this signify?" He couldn't reply. His gullet parched, limbs trembling. He eyed Ryan, then me, then the assembly, striving to absorb the occurrence. Ryan, detecting the turmoil escalating, retreated. He elevated his palms, as if atoning, yet a spark of resolve lingered in his posture, a rejection of full retreat. I didn't aim to sabotage this occasion. I didn't mean to be self-centered, but I couldn't suppress it any further. Tears brimmed in my vision. This was a wound beyond repair. My knees weakened, and I collapsed onto a seat, clasping the blooms to conceal my quaking digits. I pondered, this isn't genuine. I'm uniting with Daniel, and he just professed his affection here and now. My dad masked his countenance, a muted whimper slipping free. He grasped the severity. He'd forever desired my contentment, but now it resembled an illusion, vanished amid disorder. "Sophia," Daniel's timbre pierced the haze, subdued yet steadfast. "Can you shed light on this?" I craved to roar, debate, flee. But all I achieved was to regard him, my gaze vacant. How to illuminate when comprehension eluded me? When thought evaded, sensation yielded only to stun. Ryan advanced once more. "I never wished to inflict suffering, Sophia," he uttered, his timbre fracturing. "I simply couldn't contain it." With each syllable, each tick, I perceived the cosmos altering. This day, destined for affection's revelry, had morphed into a communal ordeal. and it unraveled amid kin, comrades, associates, observers to a spectacle I hadn't authored. I required seclusion, evasion, oblivion, but the hour had passed. The platform prepared, the revelation voiced. Ryan lingered, assured yet exposed. Daniel battled for poise, but his orbs disclosed his inner strife. I concentrated on inhalation. Draw in, expel, draw in, expel. Moisture traced my features. A figure rearward wept softly. The chamber blended muteness, disquiet, and sympathy. Sophia, Daniel repeated, his timbre chillier, nearly glacial. Please respond. I regarded him and discerned terror, terror of forfeiture, terror of the sequel. But what response? How to articulate when sentiment mystified? My intellect void, my core ensnared by dread and disarray. Ryan perceived the fracture. He withdrew, knuckles whitening as if restraining a tempest. I'll depart if that's your wish, so this can remain your day, he murmured, barely audible. But I needed to express it. I couldn't feign anymore. A mass swelled in my breast, my passage narrowing. I sealed my eyes, musing how to endure post this, how to confront these souls, how to wed Daniel hereafter. Daniel progressed erect, but his orbs harbored ache and ire. His timbre was frigid and unyielding. Ryan, appreciate your candor, but this isn't the venue or instant. We're proceeding with the rite. Ryan assented, mandible rigid. He recognized defeat in this skirmish, yet he'd aired his essence. His stare dwelled on me, laden with belated affection and remorse destined to shadow him eternally. The rite recommenced, but I navigated a mist. The officiant's utterances wafted by, the crowd's beams appeared contrived, and I positioned in my attire, endeavoring to decipher the aftermath. This day, intended as love's jubilation, had evolved into an ordeal. And I comprehended. This marked solely the inception of what loomed for Daniel, Ryan, and myself, participants in this evolving saga. Following the rite's continuation, it seemed as though my universe had imploded, as if a force had wrenched the bedrock of my elation. I aligned with Daniel, clasping his palm, but a maelstrom churned internally, irrepressible. My limbs quivered, my pulse surged, my cogitations vaulted from terror to rage, stun to muddle. I endeavored to beam for the attendees, receive felicitations, pose for lenses, but it resembled a charade, an unpracticed part. Each peek at Ryan constricted my core. He positioned afar, simulating serenity, but I noted his grip on a ledge, curbing sentiments eager for release. His ardor for me now a disclosed enigma, evident to every eye. I strove to fathom the episode. Why this juncture? Why this manner? Why me? I realized fault couldn't rest on Daniel. He was my intended spouse, the one I cherished. Yet remorse, perplexity, and alarm surged like tides. Post-rite, Daniel and I retreated to a secluded chamber for respite. He perched on a settee, and I accompanied, but an unseen barrier divided us. Sophia, he murmured, gently eyeing me, are you holding up? I desired to affirm, to claim affirmative, to simulate normalcy. But my passage clenched, and only hushed weeps emerged. I initiated, but verbiage snagged. I lack words for this. He exhaled profoundly, waited. I observed his digits coil into balls. He strove for tranquility, but his orbs unveiled his turmoil. I lack them too, Sophia, he conceded at length. I simply failed to grasp how one could enact this. I concurred. How to convey this had fractured me, that I lacked response, sentiment, that each recollection of Ryan's revelation, its openness, ignited alarm. I attempted to overlook it, Daniel, I breathed, but it's impossible. I envision his gaze, absorb his phrases, sense, all of it. He fell mute, then ultimately he declared, we must converse with him, immediately post-event, or it'll shadow us eternally. I assented, though dread welled. I lacked navigation skills. I adored Daniel, craved union with him, desired this day's sanctity. But Ryan had unveiled sentiments unforeseen. Upon re-entering the festivity, Ryan persisted, projecting ease, but I discerned strain in his frame. He spotted us, inclined his head as if signaling, I'm prepared for discourse. Post-celebration, we convened in a tranquil space. Daniel and Ryan opposed one another, and I interposed, ensnared betwixt realms. Ryan, Daniel commenced, that crossed bounds. Couldn't you select another occasion, another juncture? Ryan assented wordlessly. He acknowledged the impact on our existences, but for him, it was an inescapable verity. I understand, he replied softly. I just couldn't mute it. It's endured too long. I'm in love with Sophia. I believed silence would betray myself and you both. Daniel tensed his jaw, restraining wrath, but his orbs mirrored his torment. Sophia, you witnessed it. Daniel addressed me. What's next? The mass in my breast expanded. What's next? The query reverberated ceaselessly. I yearned to reply, but couldn't. I lacked cognition, emotion, action. I cherish you, Daniel, I uttered, timbre splintering. But advancing post this eludes me. Ryan averted his gaze. He realized he'd marred a hallowed day. Yet his ardor was authentic, and alternate conduct evaded him. We lingered in that enclosure for ages, dialoguing. I endeavored to articulate my sentiments, Daniel his, Ryan his. It was a sentimental gale. Torment, ire, disarray, dread of companionship loss, dread of union fracture, dread of tomorrow. The evening's remainder, I teetered on an abyss. Each utterance, each feeling struck like a mallet. I comprehended this day vanished irrevocably, that transformation reigned. Attendees departed, but mentally, only triad endured. Myself, Daniel, Ryan. A triad unwarranted, yet now my truth. I sought slumber that eve, but rest evaded. The right, Ryan's admission, the crowd's stares looped. I sensed disgrace, horror, and an odd, restless intrigue. Ryan had disclosed unforeseen emotions. Now endurance mystified, normalcy eluded, union with Daniel, who cherished me but now beheld disarray in my orbs. I grasped the impending struggle wasn't versus Ryan, but internal. To embrace this incident, pardon, comprehend, preserve my union and bonds sans self-loss. And that insight terrified, yet proved inescapable. The post-wedding morn arrived with a haunting stillness. I positioned by the pain in my bridal attire, now burdensome, akin to a shield guarding my essence. The sun blazed, but its heat bypassed me. It merely accentuated the void within. Daniel slumbered adjacent, respiring gently, and I observed him, hunting an anchor, a restorer of equilibrium. My affection unaltered, but faith delicate, like crystal fissured by a severe impact. Throughout the night, I relived the sequence. Ryan, his admission, his orbs brimming with truth and torment, his phrases, "I'm in love with you." I labored to dissect my sentiments toward him. Not amorous, nay, but a peculiar blend of sorrow, disquiet, and perchance admiration for his boldness. I arose and ventured to the galley. I required brew to organize my cogitations. In the hush, external noises magnified. I comprehended. This day altered all. My union, my alliances, my existence. When Daniel roused, I knew discourse loomed. The exchange we'd sidestepped since the revelation demanded attention. Sophia, he settled opposite, his regard wary. I know yesterday unraveled. I need to know your state. I inhaled profoundly. My core thumped, each pulse keener. Daniel, I launched, striving for steadiness. I cherish you. I desire companionship with you, but the occurrence, it's transformed me. Feigning otherwise is futile. He assented, his feelings arduous to voice. I cherish you as well, Sophia, he affirmed. And I comprehend. It's a strike, but we should view it as a challenge, not termination. He grasped my palm, and I sensed the accustomed warmth once signifying security. I concentrated on now, on us, on controllables. We couldn't erase Ryan's utterances, but we could mold coexistence. Subsequently, we encountered Ryan. Initial difficulty, verbiage, sentiments, clumsiness, but we conversed candidly, sans accusation or resentment. Ryan conceded his admission selfish yet essential. Daniel expressed comprehension for progression, but with defined limits. I experienced solace, perhaps initially since the revelation. We concurred our bond with Ryan could persist, but with fresh guidelines: separation, regard, and candor. These formed our novel base. That day, I discerned love transcends romance and delight. It encompasses torment, ordeals, and forgiveness capacity. It's confronting verity and clinging to essentials. With Daniel, we initiated afresh, cautiously, incrementally. Each glance, each phrase significant. We relearned trust, erected on truth and esteem. Regarding Ryan, he stayed an ally. He honored the limits, and though his ardor genuine, we chose safeguards for our union. It mingled torment and appreciation: torment for the spoiled instant, appreciation for the candor enabling advance. In time, I perceived that day, disastrous, as instruction. It demonstrated love isn't mere emotion but fortitude to surmount, to be forthright, to confront existence's unforeseen trials. Reviewing our nuptial images, I perceive beyond Ryan's admission. I behold Daniel and myself, palms linked, orbs replete with comprehension and embrace. That day scarred, yet symbolized our endurance, our affection, and our progression capacity. We mastered valuing each instant. Communicating freely, grasping true love is an issue absence but bravery to confront jointly. And therein lay liberation. Liberation to affection, trust, and persist, regardless.